So I'm working on a few larger projects in my land flipping business right now. And so I'm talking to a lot of sellers. And this week I spoke to quite a lot more sellers than I normally speak to. But one person in particular I spoke to, it reminded me of why I've been able to be consistently profitable in this business for the last, since I was 21 years old. And that is most people's framing like absolutely sucks. And I'm going to tell you just what the seller said to me. We're having a conversation. It must have been like a 30 or 40-minute conversation. And, he kind of stops in the midst of our conversation and goes, I just want to tell you, you know, from all the conversations that I've had, your rapport, the way I feel like you actually care about me. That's what he said. He's like, I feel like you actually care about me. You're not just trying to get a deal done. And so because of that, that's why I continue to talk to you. And like, I want you to know, like, I really do want to get a deal done. And this is a seller that I'm talking to, and we're in disagreement over price. But the way that I handle it with him is not in a way that, you know, it's not a my way or the highway way. Right. And he even told me that, like, a lot of the mailers and a lot of the texts that I get, sometimes I don't even respond to them. But when I looked you up, when I looked at how your process is, I wanted to call you, right? There's this thing about competition and saturation and all this, and you realize that if you just come from the position of service based first, you're going to be better than pretty much everyone else that's in this business because most people don't do that. I think you don't even realize that most people send out a mailer and they don't even respond to the sellers once they actually call them back, or they send out the text and they don't have the conversations, or they don't have a certain amount of touch points, and they don't actually have the follow up with a seller. Like, they don't do it. And then when a seller even goes to look them up, it looks like a scam. And so a big reason why sellers might think you're a scam or calling you a scam is because you're not framing them at all up until the point that they get to your call. There's no framing process whatsoever. You have a piss poor website. You don't have any reviews. Your call service sucks. You don't have any process for actually getting calls done with your sellers and getting them on the phone. It's not organized. You're not presenting a service. And that's what we are. Like, in the land business, we are service first. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there of, like, just pick really, really good markets and then sellers will call you back and you'll get deals done. And all you got to do is send out the mail. And that's not always true. You need to have infrastructure. You need to have a framing process for your sellers, because that's going to get you that extra 5 to 10 to 15 deals in a year if you're just consistently sending out marketing. There are people that will send out marketing and then get a few deals and then wonder why they're not consistently getting deals, because you're not allocating the right attention to every single one of your leads. You're not framing every single one of your leads. And if you did that, if you treated every lead and every person like it was $100,000, your business would be so much further along. And I want to give you guys context. This is on a 325-acre parcel that I was having this conversation on, right? And so it doesn't really matter how, sophisticated the seller is. If I can frame them in a way that they're able to see that I actually am here to provide a service, and they feel like I'm there to help them, regardless of what I just say. They feel like I'm there to help them based upon what they see when they look up the company. I'm going to get that deal done over anyone else. So all this stuff about competition, people don't even talk about this. So since I'm doing all these things, it's going to set me way further ahead than anyone else. And that's really what you want to do. In the space where there's a lot of real estate content, a lot of land content specifically being made, you got to do things to set yourself apart. So you have to join a group or get with people who are doing things that you're not doing things that better than you are. If you want to get better, you have to. You have to be constantly learning. You have to be constantly iterating. And if you're not, you're going to fall behind in this business. And then you're going to be one of those people that are like, oh, this business doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work. The land flipping business is a scam and whatever. It doesn't work. Your sellers, when they open your mailer, when they open your text and they go to look you up, they should not think, oh, this is a scam. They should think, let me call, right? And your job is to figure out, how do I get them to just call? Because once the seller calls, you're on the other end of that, having a conversation, having a quality conversation. And if you can have a quality conversation, service based first, and really understand two pain points: the pain point of the seller and the main pain points of the property. If you can understand those things and you can understand how to utilize those in conversation for negotiation with the seller, you're going to close more deals than anyone else. And this is a simple thing. You just have to be able to consistently do this over and over and over again. And yeah, there's reps. Like there's a lot of reps that you have to make. There's a lot of touch points that you have to make. But I mean, you got to ask yourself what's on the other end of that. What's on the other end of me making 75 to 100 touch points for this one deal? It could be $150,000 in profit. And that's what you have to ask yourself and realize, like, okay, am I willing to do the work that's going to take me to the other end of this? Am I willing to do the work that's going to allow me to have a land flipping business that makes $250,000 a year or more? Am I going to do everything it takes to frame my sellers so that they call me and then I can go build even more rapport? These are the things that most people are not willing to do, and most people will just rather cry and complain about it. In order to get to the level where you can get on the phone, talk to a seller, and have them trust you within 30 to 40 minutes, like I can, you have to practice over and over and over again. And you have to practice properly. There's a lot of misinformation about, basically tricking sellers into thinking that we're giving them market value when we're not. And we don't have to do that. 99.9% of the sellers that I work with know that they're not getting market value, and they're okay with that. They understand that we can perform quickly and actually pay them cash, as opposed to dealing with realtor terms or seller financing terms, or sitting on the market for a long time, or a realtor overpricing them and then they don't sell and they have to deal with all this other nonsense. They'd rather just go straight through and get a cash offer. That's the ideal client that we're working with. And if you can consistently work with that ideal client, then you're going to make a lot of money. You have to be able to frame that client, though, into trusting you to perform. As long as they trust you to perform, they're going to sell to you. And so there's no, like, we're not pulling the rug under people. That's not what we're doing. And I see a lot of that stuff. I'm just like, no, that's not it. You don't want to trick people, because if they have the knowledge that, yeah, you know what, I actually can sell this for more, but I want to sell it now because I have a wedding to pay for, or I just got sick, or I just had a divorce, or I'm about to travel, or I had a baby, or whatever it is right time, right place. And it's all circumstantial, and it's timing. The more you send out the mail, the more you send out the text, the more you frame your sellers, the more you build rapport, the more deals you do. That's just how it works. And so there shouldn't be any aspect of you that's trying to trick or bamboozle a seller, because you don't want to get to the point where they come to the closing table and they're like, hey, you didn't tell me that it was X, Y, and Z. You might also be thinking, well, what about a double close? What if they see that it's listed for more money on the market? Many a times too, I've worked with sellers that knew we were double closing the property. I know how to market the property 1,000 times better than you know how to market the property, or any broker that you will work with knows how to market the property, which is why I'm doing that. And so what I even say is that, yes, we have a multitude of exit strategies that we implement. We still fully intend to closing your property in cash come the closing day. That's all I say. And 99% of the time, they're happy with that. And so there shouldn't be anything about you or any factor of you that wants to trick a seller or wants to trick anyone. You want to abide by good business practices. I believe if you consistently abide by good business practices, you're going to consistently be profitable. And that's what matters. Do good business, build trust, build rapport, do it consistently, and make a lot of money. That's it. You don't have to. I feel like there's this thing of, you got to be dishonest, or you have to, trick people in order to make a lot of money. And that's it could be further from the truth. I have not seen that to be true in my life. When I am honorable, when I do things the right way, when I frame things the right way, I always make more money. I always make the most money. And that's how I've always done things. I've never done it any other way. I've never tried to trick anyone. I've never tried. This is what it is. This is what it looks like. This is how we do it. And that's it. You want to do it or you don't. But if you say you don't, let me help you to understand why this can work for you. And if it really doesn't work for you after I framed you to that point, then okay. But so many people do such a bad job at that framing process and don't understand that you can help a seller to understand where you come into play and where you can actually add value. And you don't even know where you can add value because you're not talking to your sellers enough to understand where you might be able to add value. You're not having those conversations. You're not consistently making the offers. You don't know that they have a wedding to pay for. You don't know that they're sick. You don't know what their situation is. You just don't know. And you have no process to follow up on that. So the seller that I was telling you about earlier, I have a full acquisitions process to get this property under contract. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'll give you another example. I just closed on another property today for $55,000. I think $56,000 after closing costs. And it was 20 acres. I talked to the broker about this property. What's crazy is the broker used to own this property. He sold it to the person we bought it from, and now we're about to list this with the broker. And we just had a completely honest conversation. He told me about the property. He told me why he sold it. He told me that it can sell for much more. He told me what the person before him did on it. And the person that we bought the property from knows that we're about to go sell the property for double. And they don't care because they got what they needed out of the situation. So in this specific scenario, everything is completely open and honest. And that's how you should be. There shouldn't be any part of you that wants to behoove or trick a seller at all. So think about a seller's user experience from the moment that they open your piece of marketing, whether it be a text or a mailer. Think about how that experience goes for them, and think about how you would receive that experience. And also think about how every single profile would respond to your marketing. If you're trying to go get six-figure deals, you need to be talking to people that own multiple six-figure assets. How do you talk to those people? You cannot talk to the people that you're offering on a multi-six-figure asset. You can't talk to those people in the exact same way that you talk to someone that has, a $12,000 asset. You just cannot send the same kind of marketing. The language needs to be different. You need to start curating your marketing to a specific seller profile. When you open a text, when you open a mailer, when you visit your website, how would you see it? Would you see your website and want to call? Would you see your process and want to call? Would you see your follow-up process and want to call back after a voicemail is left? These are the questions that you need to start asking yourself if you want to have continued success in the land flipping business. Because there's so many people that come into this and die off because they have no process and they don't know how to implement the infrastructure correctly. They don't know how to do it. And so it's like, oh, I did a couple deals. Yeah, but that was like 5 years ago. That was like 4 years ago. I did like 1 or 2 deals. But like, honestly, I don't think it works. And I think it's saturated. And I think that land flipping is eventually going to burn out because too many people are getting into it, which is complete bullshit, by the way. It is complete bullshit. Anyone that says that, anyone that's like, oh man, it's been really rough and I took a tough hit last year. Go look at your process. Go look at your systems. Go look at your infrastructure. How are you framing your sellers? What does your follow-up process look like? How are you selling properties on the market? What are you doing to separate yourself from the other properties that are on the market? Is there anything that you're doing at all? Are you trying to do that? What KPIs are you tracking? How many conversations are you having? How many offers are you making? Do you know the relation between mail you send and conversations you have, or text you send and conversations you have? Do you know? When you send out a contract, are you sending that contract out over the phone, or do you send it out and then wait and then hope and pray that someone sends it back? All of these things are things that people don't do. And then they're like, oh man, I don't close any deals, man. And oh, this doesn't work. So if you want to be a person that has continued, sustained success in this business, closing deal after deal, like I have, focus on your framing process. How are you framing sellers up until the point that they call you? And then once they call you, what's your follow-up process like? What's your framing process like? How are you going to build rapport to get the deals closed consistently? Because the same thing that works for one seller may not work for all. And you may have to iterate along the way and understand how to appease every single seller profile. Trying to trick any seller into thinking that you're paying them market value, because you're not. You're providing a service, and you need to understand how to frame your service and present your service in a way that they trust it and trust that you're going to be ready to close come closing day. If you do all these things, you're going to make an obscene amount of money, like more money than you would have ever thought you'd make in your entire life. If you need help implementing or building these systems into your business so that you can do $250,000 net profit per year or more, book a call with me below. I'd be happy to help. This has been Femi Lamverse, and I'll see you on the next video.